Here lies George Johnson, hanged by mistake, 1882. He was right, we was wrong, but we strung him up, and now he's gone. The historic Boot Hill Cemetery on the edge of Tombstone, a must-see, gives an indication of the often violent endings of the short lives of those who lived the Wild West. Boot Hill's most famous graves are those of the three men on the losing side of the gunfight at the OK Corral, that most legendary of all Old West showdowns, where members of the Clanton Gang shot it out with Wyatt Earp, his brothers Virgil and Morgan, and the deadly dentist known as Doc Holliday. But not everybody thinks the Earps were the good guys.
If they'd have came back to Tombstone, they would have been tried, convicted, and hung for murder, because a lot of those cowboys were innocent, and the Earps just killed them anyway.
Arizona Bill shared his views on Tombstone's past during the fascinating history tour he hosts for Tombstone Monument Ranch. Bill takes you to the old courtroom where killers were sentenced and the gallows outside where that grim sentence was carried out in the courtyard. The courthouse itself is filled with authentic memorabilia and displays telling the story of Wyatt Earp, Ed Shefflin, and other residents of this wide-open town.
There was 180 licensed saloons in the 1800s here in Tombstone. 3,500 licensed prostitutes.
Lady of Sport.
We met a lady of sport, a reenactor of course, outside the very authentic Birdcage Theater, where you can see Doc Holliday's faro table, the horse-drawn hearse kept busy on trips to Boot Hill, and whose walls and ceiling are punctured with hundreds of bullet holes. Known as the town Too Tough to Die, all of Tombstone looks much like it did when Wyatt and Doc walked the wooden sidewalks here. Even visiting members of the U.S. Army admire the grit it must have taken to survive here back in the day.
Pretty impressive. Just the history of it. As we were driving out, we were just wondering back, in those days of the cowboys, of how they crossed the lands through here, is the way it is laid out. It's just amazing. Yeah.
How would you navigate from point A to point B?
They didn't have Siri or a GPS back then.
We met those soldiers outside the Gunfighter Hall of Fame, where you can see the weapons owned by Doc Holliday, the Dalton Gang, and other Western legends. Big Nose Kate's is among the popular historic saloons, where you can also book a private tour of the town.
You get the real history, you find out which buildings are authentic from the 1800s, you find out where the gunfight happened and why it happened. I do the real version, not Hollywood.
Last gunfight show of the day, right inside the Gunfight Palace.
Gunfights are always a big draw, but there's none more popular than the one everyone comes here to see, the reenactment of the gunfight at the OK Corral. But the Earps and Doc Holliday are happy to pose for a picture before they bravely stride off to face down the Clanton Gang. As cool as it is, Tombstone is only the best known part of this area's rich frontier history.